Activity number 3, investigating radio signals like Sputniks. In the following part here, you'll have a choice of 2 hands-on activities, one with a radio or one with a radio-controlled toy, for example, a radio-controlled car, if you've got one, and an extension activity. So the first one with the radio, you need a working radio, and a battery-powered one is good, some sticky tape, and samples of different materials large enough to completely wrap your radio, so you can just look at those and pause while you think about 2 more as well. And what you're going to do is turn on the radio, make sure it works, and make some suggestions what you think you might be listening for changes that might occur, and suggest 4. And for each of the materials you've chosen, predict, before you do any of the experiments, predict what you think each material might do to the radio signal. And here, the first example, here we're going to use plastic wrap. You could use a plastic shopping bag. Cover the radio completely and carefully with one of the samples. But be careful not to change the volume setting or the station as you do the covering. And note what happens, write down what happens to the sound emitted from the radio when you have completely covered it. And to continue, once you've written down your notes, remove the plastic wrap, and again with the radio on, in turn, recover the radio, taping it, using sticky tape to tape it down, and note what happens to the sound from the radio. Now, pause here, explain your results and what it tells you about radio signals and how that relates to what you've discovered about Sputnik. And then for the second part, which you can do as well or instead of, a radio-controlled car with its controller or another radio-controlled toy. Suggest adults around if it's a boat on water source. So pause to see the materials here, slightly different, and 2 other materials of your choice. Again, make sure that your device is working and that here the car responds to signals, and note what the responses are so that when you have the device shielded, blocked by different materials, you'll notice the differences. So list at least 4 types of change that might happen to the radio-controlled toy when it's covered with something. And before you start any of the covering and doing the experiment, pause here to predict what you think might happen with each of the materials. First one we're going to look at is a disposable glove. Carefully put in the controller, and you've sort of got to know where the controls are. I think you feel them through the glove, and seal the wrist part of the glove with tape, and write down what you actually notice different or the same, and as many different types of motion as you can. And then remove the tape, take the controller out of the glove, and cover the controller carefully in turn without making it work as you're taping things on, for each of the other materials, and write down what happens from the signals and the movement of the car, and pause to explain the results that you get, and look back at your predictions and what does this tell you about the radio signals from the radio controlled car. And then, as an extra activity, testing the penetrating power of IR waves, infrared waves. If you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, the infrared has a shorter wavelength, a higher frequency than the radio waves that we're dealing with Sputnik here. And the longer IR waves can't penetrate the Earth's atmosphere from space. Your television remote controller uses infrared wavelengths to communicate with your TV set and see what material will stop the channel changing activity of your TV remote. Now, are these the same that affected radio waves? Explain what you find out in 2 or 3 sentences. And then talk about the difference it would have been if Sputnik had produced the shorter IR waves that can penetrate the Earth's atmosphere instead of radio waves. What would have been the differences?